Yo, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of The Sauce. Continuing on with NFL Week 1. Got a good game here. Jags, Dolphins in Miami. Let's do it.
Welcome to The Sauce. The Sauce. Sauce. Hey, get the sauce.
All right, like I said, Jags are on the road to Miami for this one. Looks like the line's back up at 3.5. It's been moving back and forth. Actually, there is a 3 available on Caesars, it looks like, but most sportsbooks have bumped it up. You can get a cheap 3.5 at plus 100 about across the board. Total sitting at 48.5, actually mostly 49s now. So that's where the lines are sitting at currently. Let's go ahead and get into this one. So let's take a look at some head-to-head history between these two teams, although they don't meet very often, so really not much here. 3-3 in their last 6 meetings, 3-3 against the spread. Jacksonville has taken 3 of the last 4, but I mean, we're talking dating back to 2015. These two teams haven't played in 3 years, so this information is pretty much irrelevant. Now let's get to some relevant information. Let's talk about Jacksonville's passing offense and the drop in production we saw last year. 2022, Trevor Lawrence bursts onto the scene, right? Climbs up, second half of the season. Jags are one of the best passing attacks in football. They finished the year 8th in passing DVOA, 13th in passer rating. But then last year, they add Calvin Ridley. We're expecting that passing attack to take another step forward. We're expecting Trevor Lawrence to be considered one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Actually took a step backwards. Jags were just 14th in passing DVOA, 19th in passer rating. So a small step backwards there for Jacksonville last year. And honestly, a big part of it might be the offensive line. Now, I know you look just 3rd in pressure rate allowed, 12th in adjusted sack rate. That doesn't look that bad. But their pass blocking grade is back at 22nd, and that's the same for a lot of advanced metrics. This Jags offensive line, it's actually similar to Miami's offensive line, actually. It's hidden by how quickly Trevor Lawrence gets rid of the football. 3rd in the NFL last year, 3rd lowest time to throw. So although they didn't give up a ton of pressures, they didn't give up a ton of sacks, this was not a good offensive line last year. I mean, look at their run blocking grades. We'll get to that in a second. Now, on the other side, you got Miami's defensive front. Pretty much top 10 across the board. This is a great pass rush last year. This is a really great run defense last year. So we definitely need to ask, did Jacksonville do anything to help this offensive line? And the answer is yes. I mean, they brought in Ezra Cleveland, but that was mid-season. Didn't really play great down the stretch, but I'm thinking an off-season training camp with the team. He should be better this year at left guard. They also brought in Mitch Morse to play center. So they 2 upgrades here on the Jacksonville offensive line, which should help that out. Now, does that turn a bottom 5 run blocking offensive line into a top 10 offensive line? Probably not, but it should be a step in the right direction at least. Now, what about Miami's defensive front? We just looked at a graphic that showed they were top 10 in a lot of metrics up front. Can we expect the same sort of production this year? Well, they bring in a new defensive coordinator, Anthony Weaver. Vic Fangio is gone. Anthony Weaver hasn't been a defensive coordinator since 2020 with Houston, and that defense was terrible. One of the worst defenses in the NFL. But to be fair to Anthony Weaver, he didn't really have a ton to work with on that defense. I mean, it was J.J. Watt and not a ton of talent, I'll say that. So I don't think we should judge this guy based on this year. Definitely tough to predict what we're going to see from Miami defensively, though. We know what we saw last year with Vic Fangio. They were able to generate pressure without blitzing. Just 21.5% blitz rate, 27th in the NFL. But they were 3rd in pressure rate, 7th in adjusted sack rate. So last year, Miami was able to pressure the quarterback without sending many extra rushers, which is obviously huge. Now, Anthony Weaver takes over the defense. It's interesting because in 2020, when he was the DC for the Texans, they blitzed a lot. 35.9% blitz rate. That was 7th most in the NFL this year. So are we going to see the Dolphins come out with some blitz packages this year? I think the answer to that might be yes. I mean, it certainly should be in the game plan for week 1 because look at Trevor Lawrence's numbers against the blitz and when not blitzed. When not blitzed, he's a top 10 quarterback last year amongst 32 qualified quarterbacks. When he was blitzed, 23rd in passer grade, 30th in completion percentage, 27th in pressure to sack rate, 30th in passer rating. Now, this goes to show you the state of the Jacksonville Jaguars offensive line last year, because when he was able to take his three-step drops against no blitz, get the ball out quick, no problem. But when they send blitz packages at him, he struggled a bit. Now, another thing we need to point out about the Dolphins defense, it's not just a new defensive coordinator here. They also have some new pieces on the defense. Calais Campbell's now here. That's a solid pickup. Jordan Poyer, huge pickup at safety there. Jalen Phillips hopefully makes a full recovery and he's back to being his old self. So there's some new pieces. Kendall Fuller's here. So there's some new pieces on this Dolphins defense, but there's two huge pieces missing. Oh, and also Jalen Ramsey should fall under the good category as well. Now, he was there last year, but he missed the first chunk of the season. So having Jalen Ramsey on the field, I know he's listed as questionable, and he didn't practice yesterday, but I expect him to play. So having Jalen Ramsey out there to start the season is also a positive. So there are some positives here when it comes to the Dolphins defense. But there's also two major pieces missing. One is Bradley Chubb, who got hurt at the end of last season, and he's not back. He is not going to be playing in week 1. And the other one is Van Ginkel, who is gone, no longer with the team. And you might be thinking, oh, Van Ginkel, who cares? Well, actually, when Jalen Phillips got hurt last year, Van Ginkel was the man on this defense. He was one of their best defensive players last year. So that actually is a significant loss. Now, if Jalen Phillips is 100% and back to being himself, it won't hurt as bad. Hopefully he's fine. I mean, he's coming off a serious injury, but no question, Van Ginkel is a huge loss. So some new pieces, but also some losses here from the Miami defense. Will they be able to generate the same pressure they did last year? And at least in week 1, with no Bradley Chubb, no Van Ginkel, and Jalen Phillips playing his first game in a long time, I'd have to say no. So Miami's pass rush, maybe to start the season, might get off to a slow start. Now, as far as the Jacksonville rushing attack, though, I mean, there's not many positive talking points here. Here are their rushing DVOA metrics from the last 3 years. 23rd in 2021, 22nd. Then last year they were 26th. Never can really sustain a successful rushing attack here in Jacksonville. There was like a 4 or 5 week stretch, not last year, the year before, where it looks like ETN was the guy and it looks like they were going to start running it. Didn't last long. Look at their offensive line metrics as far as creating space in the rushing attack. 30th in run blocking grade, 31st in adjusted line yards. This team just cannot sustain a rushing attack. And they definitely got a rough draw here in week 1 on the road in Miami. Not only were the Dolphins excellent against the run last year, 3.8 yards per carry allowed, which is 3rd best in the NFL, 14th in run defense DVOA, but look at their metrics at home. 3.3 yards per carry, which is, it leads the NFL. This was the best run defense in football at home. Now, do those types of metrics translate year to year? That's tough to say, but look at the Dolphins defense at home last year. Similar to the Cleveland Browns, points per game allowed on the road, 30. Points per game allowed at home, 16.4. And same goes for yards per game allowed. So no question, Dolphins defense at home was a force, especially against the run. Nobody came into Miami and ran the football. So not a great draw there for the Jags, a team that always seems to struggle to run the ball anyway. But I do think the hindered pass rush for Miami will give Trevor Lawrence some opportunities to make plays. I don't think the Dolphins defense is going to shut Jacksonville down. They should be able to move the chains here and there. On the other side, we got the Jacksonville defense, and they were trending in the right direction. 2021, they were 30th in overall defensive DVOA, 23rd the following year. Then last year, they snuck their way into the top 10, 10th in overall defensive DVOA. And what'd they do? They fired the DC. Mike Caldwell was let go. He's with the Raiders now. They're bringing Ryan Nielsen from Atlanta. Falcons defense last year was 24th in overall DVOA, 30th against the pass, 11th against the run, which is weird because it was kind of similar to the Jacksonville Jaguars defensive patterns. They struggled against the pass. They were very good against the run. So they fired their DC and brought in the Falcons guy who also struggled against the pass, who was very good against the run. Now, obviously, it's much more complicated than that. It's not as simple as run defense, pass defense, but still, on the surface, it's a little weird to see. Now, if you're a Dolphins fan, I already mentioned the edge rush could be a concern, certainly to start the year, but another concern of yours is the interior of your offensive line. Now, Robert Jones filled in last year for Robert Hunt when he got hurt and played well. So I think Robert Jones should be fine. Robert Hunt is gone, by the way. He's no longer there, the left guard. But Aaron Brewer comes in to play center. Connor Williams is no longer here. That's a loss. Aaron Brewer, I believe, led the NFL in sacks allowed via centers. So no center in the NFL allowed more sacks than Aaron Brewer. So this could be a concern. They lose 2 pieces on the interior of their offensive line. But what do we always say about this Dolphins offense, about Mike McDaniel, about Tua Tagovailoa? They get rid of the ball so fast that, kind of like what we were saying about Jacksonville, but even more so. This is first first in time to throw. Nobody gets rid of the football as fast as Tua Tagovailoa and the Miami Dolphins offense. If there's any offense that can hide a struggling offensive line, it's this one. Not to mention, Miami added some pieces here. Jonnu Smith is there at tight end. That's a cool add. Odell Beckham, who's not currently active, but he's there. They're entering the season with their 2 superstar running backs, both healthy, Mostert and Achane. Also, they drafted Jalen Wright from Tennessee, who, if you didn't watch college football, dude is a monster. He's good as hell. So yeah, the interior offensive line is a bit of a concern here, but also it's the Dolphins. Mike McDaniel, I consider one of the best offensive minds in the NFL right now. Tua Tagovailoa knows how to run this offense, and if they continue to do what they have been doing the last 2 years, I have no question this will be one of the best, if not the best, offense in the NFL this year. Here are their offensive line metrics, and you can see 3rd in adjusted sack rate, 3rd in adjusted line yards, but look at the ranks, 18th and 17th, which is kind of what I was saying. Miami, not only do they get the ball out so quickly, but they run so much misdirection, so much pre-snap motion that really helps your offensive line out. Now, look at the left side of this graphic. Look at Jacksonville's pass rush numbers. This is a concern. 27th rated as far as pass rush grade goes, 23rd in adjusted sack rate. How do you beat this Miami Dolphins team? You put pressure on Tua. He's 22nd in pressure to sack rate. So when you put pressure on him, he takes a lot of sacks. Also, look at his passing numbers. When pressured, 25th in yards per attempt, 52.8 passer rating, which is 30th best amongst qualified quarterbacks. You pressure Tua Tagovailoa. That's how you beat the Dolphins. When you don't pressure him, he cooks you. I mean, he's one of the best quarterbacks in football, if not the best quarterback in football, when you don't pressure him. So when we scroll back to this Jacksonville defensive line graphic here, these pass rush numbers are a little bit concerning. Now, you might be thinking, well, Kyle, they brought in Nielsen. They got a new DC. Maybe they brought somebody in that could generate a pass rush. Want to know what the Atlanta Falcons pass rush numbers were last year? Actually, worse than Jacksonville, which, again, it's more complicated than this, but still, the hire on the surface was a little weird. Now, speaking of Ryan Nielsen, what's another thing the Falcons did a lot of last year? Man coverage. They were 4th in the NFL in man coverage frequency last year. That's not what we saw from the Jags this year. In fact, Jacksonville ran a ton of zone. They were 5th in the NFL in zone frequency. Why is that a bit of a concern here in week 1? Because no NFL team cooks man coverage quite like Tua Tagovailoa, Tyreek Hill, and Jalen Waddle. Against man coverage last year, Tua 8.91 yards per pass attempt. Look at the EPA, 2nd best in the NFL, 15th in turnover-worthy play rate, so he did turn the ball over a little bit. But as a whole, I mean, man coverage against this Dolphins team is tough. So Ryan Nielsen ran a lot of man coverage, a ton of man coverage last year in Atlanta. Is he going to bring that over to Jacksonville? I'm not saying it's not going to work out, nothing like that, but week 1 on the road in Miami is tough. I mean, let's not forget, this was one of, if not the best offense in football last year. 2nd in yards per play, 4th in EPA, 4th in success rate, 3rd in DVOA. Rushing, passing didn't matter. 8.1 yards per pass attempt was 2nd best in the NFL. 5 yards per carry was the best in the NFL. Top 5 in every passing and rushing major metric. Look, I'm definitely on Miami here. I already bet this. I have the Dolphins -3. I got it the other day. I think if you look, you can still find a 3. But yeah, this is the side I need to be on. Admittedly, there's 2 brand new defensive coordinators. There's a lot of unknowns. And yes, the entire world is going to come in on the Miami side. No question. It's going to be a bit of a square bet, but I mean, I don't care. Over the last 2 years, how many times has Miami covered as a home favorite the super public side? Happens all the time. So I'm not worried about that at all. In my opinion, nobody's stopping this Miami offense, especially on their home field this time of year. So yeah, I'm pretty comfortable on my side here, Miami -3. By the way, there are weather concerns. Apparently this game might see a lot of rain. I mean, it's not ideal, but don't really mind it either. Miami's the much better running team, and Trevor Lawrence historically is terrible in bad weather. So I not that I want to see bad weather, but that wouldn't scare me off the bet. I'm on the Dolphins at -3 here. If you want to see all the bets I currently have open, head over to KyleKirms.com and click on open bets. You can see all my bets as well as everyone on the staff here. So if you're interested, head over to the website and sign up. Also, when you sign up for Sauce Network Plus, it comes with access to the Discord, and you can participate in the weekly betting league. So if you're interested in that, head over to the website and sign up.
Got another underdog pick'em here. Just a little 2-piece. We got Devon Achane, higher than 21.5 receiving yards. Really like the matchup for him here against the Jaguars defense that allowed the 3rd most receiving yards per game to running backs through the air last year. They also allowed the most targets per game out of the backfield two running backs last year. A-Chain got pretty involved out of the backfield as well last year. And all the talk in the offseason was that they wanted to get him more involved in year 2. Could only see that really growing. There's a reason most books don't have a receptions line as well. Feel like they don't want to tip their cap how involved they see him getting in this game. And then our second play that we have for this one, Christian Kirk, higher than 54.5 receiving yards. I think the Jaguars are going to be trailing in this game just like Kyle does. And then on top of that, the clear best matchup on the field for Trevor Lawrence to throw the ball to is Christian Kirk against Kadir Kahu in the slot. I mean, he really struggled last year. And honestly, Jalen Ramsey on the outside, probably against BTJ, or Fuller against Gabe Davis. That is not ideal. Get the ball to Christian Kirk. I would probably wait to play this just because the weather in Florida, you never know with the rain. But if the weather's good, all systems go. Obviously, with underdog, we got the free square. It is Travis Kelce over the half yard. And then as far as underdog goes, if you want an $1,000 bonus cash first deposit match, use the code BET. Yep, up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you make your first deposit. Just use the code BET.
Live shows, weekdays, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, weekends, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. If you're able to make it, we'd love to see you in the comments. The big shows are Saturday morning and Sunday morning. Saturday morning, 10 a.m. to kick off. We go through every single college football game on the board. Sunday morning, we're going to do like 10:30, 11 a.m. to kick off. I'll probably finish around 12:45, actually. Go through every NFL game. We're doing props, touchdown scorers. That's going to be fun. So if you're able to make it, we'd love to see you in the comments there. Let's have ourselves a great NFL Week 1, man. Remember to bet responsibly. It's a long season. Talk to you in the Discord.